Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
Stop me if you've heard this one, kids. There's this DC Comics movie. Okay? Everything's clicking along, at least we think it is. It's released, and then later we get calls for the original director to come back and to do his own cut of the film. And not only are we getting demand for it, it's a lot of demand. It's people are really wanting this. So said director comes back, and guess what? He does it. He releases a cut of the film, and then boom, history is made. No, we're not talking about the Snyderverse. All you wackadoodle Snyder fans out there can calm down, take a breath. I know you're excited. We're not doing it. We've already done it. It's in the archives. Go look it up. We're instead talking about Superman 2. And if you're not familiar with the story, we're going to get into it here today, as well as the famous, not infamous, the famous Donner cut. Because, brother, if you only know the version directed by Dick Lester that was released in the theaters that most everyone grew up with, including myself, then you don't know the actual, Superman 2, the Donner cut. There are two different films, okay? A lot of the same footage used, a lot of the same scenes used, that's true. But a lot of hokey, wackadoodle scenes have been cut out. It's got very close to the same ending as the original Superman movie, the 1978 classic that, yes, we have covered here on the podcast. And coincidentally, kids, in case you didn't know this is fun times, all right? We covered that episode in episode 96 a year ago. Episode 96, we covered the 1978 Superman the movie. And yes, if you're doing your math, you're looking at this as episode 197. So we're like a year after the fact. But look, let me tell you, man. And again, if you don't know, you're going to find out today, because the Donner cut, again, is very, very much worth your time. We're going to be talking a lot about that, as well as the original that we got in the theaters. Hang on, kids. We're going to get into this. Let's do this, folks. Superman 2 is a 1980 superhero film directed by Richard Lester and written by Mario Puzo and David and Leslie Newman, from a story by Puzo based on the DC Comics character Superman. It is the second installment of the Superman film series and a sequel to 1978's original Superman. A direct continuation of the first Superman, Christopher Reeve reprises his role as the Man of Steel, and the returning cast includes some very familiar faces from the first film. As we said, the sucker was released in 1980, and the actual running time is 127 minutes. The box office for this film, on a budget of $54 million, is nearly $191 million. And that, kids, is the lowdown on Superman 2. Lots to get into here today, Phil. Right out the gate, which film do you prefer? The classic Superman 2 that we all knew, or the Donner cut? Do you have a preference of either movie?
Probably the theatrical release, just because I've seen it the most.
Mm-hmm.
But then, when I really think about it, I don't know if I really have a preference. But yeah, probably a theatrical cut, because I've seen that one the most.
That's fair. Like I said, I grew up with that one, as a lot of us did. But I watched them both back to back today, and man, there are some big time differences, which we're going to get into. Richard Donner, a legend, of course, he's no longer with us. And we've talked about Donner here before on the show, Phil, for the Lethal Weapon flick. So you and I were talking quite a bit before we recorded here today. The whole Superman thing that's going on right now with the new Superman film, and the way people are just toxic and complaining, and every photo and bit of footage. Everyone hates everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, dude, sometimes I wonder if films ever would have gotten made had the internet been a thing in the 70s and 80s. It's quite shocking to me, man. Well, how do you chalk all this up, this fan reaction to the latest Superman stuff that's making the rounds online right now?
It makes me feel pretty old, man, because I'm just like, guys, we've been here hundreds of times at this point. I'm old enough to remember the message board era and how we got peeks of behind the scenes stuff all the time. And, we would dissect these things on message boards or sit and uh, overanalyze things. And then when the movie came out, we'd be completely wrong about a lot of things. And so, in the day and age of the internet where everybody has access to these things, it didn't used to be things like what was a comic book movie website, comic book movie news or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It didn't used to be. It used to be like a handful of sites that aggregated these things. But now you can just find it anywhere. It'll just pop up on Twitter. It's all over social media. And so you would think now, when more people have access to these things and it's more of a norm, that people would look at them with more common sense. But nope, we're still doing the same thing with a lot of nerds, uh, overanalyzing things like that's not what his hair should look like, or that's not what he looks like at all. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, why don't we just wait until this comes out? Like, I remember when we first saw those behind the scenes stills of the Iron Man suit and how we're all
Mhm.
like, this looks very bad. This looks cheap and all these other things. And then the movie comes out, not even the movie, the trailer comes out, and we're completely wrong.
Completely wrong. It's like the X-Men 2, back before the internet was really a thing, or at least that big of a thing. No social media that I can recall. What was it, 2000, I guess, for that first X-Men film? I saw stills coming out of Hugh Jackman, the actors in the suits, and I thought, blue? Is that pleather? What is this crap? Like, or black? It was the black suits. What are we doing here? And of course, I ate my words once I saw the film.
So I think we can wait and give it some time.
That's it. Yeah. I was going to say, is it because we're so passionate as a fan base or because so many people just can't wait and just allow things to just happen?
I think it's just instant gratification. I think a lot of times we want it now. Like, we want it to look like the finished product now. And people aren't thinking like, we're not supposed to see any of these behind the scenes stills. We're not supposed to see this until it's done.
Mm.
If you keep going in there and peeking at this pool of batter in a pan before it actually turns into a cake, like, yeah, this looks pretty unimpressive. I don't know.
It's the Captain Marvel suit, the green Kree suit from the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
I
over
don't.
again.
Yeah, I don't know. You keep going in there, peeking in that oven, like, yeah, it doesn't look like it's supposed to yet. Go figure, because it's not done.
Not done. Good Lord.
But yeah, I just think a lot of people want to be able to react to things immediately. That's the internet norm right now, is that we're supposed to be able to react to things when it happens. You're not supposed to react or, think logically. You're supposed to get takes out quickly. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the immediate reaction.
Get mad. Let's all get mad. Let's just get irate with each other and get mad over something that's not real. I mean, the film's real. The actors are real. But what are we talking about? These aren't, God, I don't get it. Like, this is not a biographical film about John Kennedy or Dr. King. This is about a dude that never existed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Speaking of the dude that we're talking about, and by the way, kids, that our original review was in 2022. Excuse me. It's been 2 years since episode 96 hit. Do the math. If you can do the math, kids, like I didn't do, you'll come up 2 years later, which is where we are. But this next Superman film, which we're alluding to, is set to release in 2025, July 11th, 2025, directed and written by the great James Gunn, starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Isabella Merced. Nathan Fillion's in this movie. It's going to be big, Phil. We talked a little bit about this, but yeah, the suit, the hair, people are beside themselves. Cats and dogs living together. It's mass hysteria. Chaos in the streets, Phil. People can't stand it.
I mean, I think there are a lot of things to be optimistic about,
Mm.
because all these things are cyclical. If you give it enough time, if you don't like this thing, hey, maybe something will happen and somebody else will take the reins and make something that you like. Because again, I'm old. I've been here before. I went through the entire Sam Raimi trilogy, and I really enjoyed that. Then somebody else came in with a direction that I was not a fan of, and that went away, and we got another franchise that was good.
Hmm.
And that could easily happen here. I think my immediate excitement here, as somebody that didn't read the Superman comics a lot growing up, I followed a lot of his stuff in other media. I was never like a big fan of the comics. Um, but I did like enjoy the animated series. At one
Mm.
point, I did enjoy, of course, the Christopher Reeves movies, and so we went through a long drought without a Superman movie. Then we got Superman Returns, which was a very mixed bag. Um,
Mm.
and then we got Man of Steel, and boy, did I not like Man of Steel. And so, um, I've been just kind of looking around, like even right now, we talked before we start recording that we haven't had a new Superman solo movie in over 10 years. And so I'm just more excited to see what somebody else's take on the character would be and to just get a new Superman movie.
I mean, James Gunn made a talking raccoon awesome,
Hmm.
and a walking, talking tree, and made us cry when those characters were near death, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And but we believe that he's not capable of doing the Superman film.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, he made said raccoon into the most interesting character in the group and the eventual leader of the group by the end of the franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It's his team at the end.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I for my money, he brought some of the best acting out of John Cena.
For
Um,
sure. Yep.
he's done so many things at this point. He took a ragtag group of guys and made a very good Suicide Squad. At this
Mm-hmm.
point, I trust him based on his track record. Um, he also was a part of the very fun Scooby Doo movies at one point that I really liked.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that he can make a good Superman movie. And so when I saw these stills, and I was like, "Oh, bright colors, we're back!" Like we're not having like the drab, muted colors. Everything doesn't have to have like this like overdone, pseudo realistic texture all over it. Um, it's actually like bright colors. I was like, "This, we're here." Mr. Terrific looks incredible.
Looks terrific.
He looks like he was ripped right off a page of a comic.
Yes.
Um, correct me if I'm wrong, but the actor that's playing him was Darwin in the First Class film, right?
I let's see here. I
But I
think
think,
you're right.
but I think even that idea that he's getting another chance to be in a comic book movie after his very disappointing demise in that movie that made no sense.
Mm.
Um, I think that is a good sign. I really like the casting that they're going with in this movie. Um, I don't know. I'm just excited to see more Superman content out there. I think the current cartoon that's on My Adventures with Superman is really good.
Mm.
So I don't know. I'm just excited to see what Warner Brothers is going to do with this.
You're right. Eddie Gathegi, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a Kenyan-born American actor. He was Darwin in the First Class film.
Yeah. So glad to see him get another shot at a comic book character
Mm-hmm.
and somebody as interesting as Mr. Terrific, and he looks the part.
Mm. He looks great. You and I were chatting about that. Like they've even whited out his eyes in the mask.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks great. The jacket looks great. Very excited to see what role he plays in the movie.
Can't wait to see Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, dude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I sometimes still lament over the fact that we didn't get the Booster Gold movie that he has many times said he wanted to make.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
what can you do?
I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm anxious to see it. And, you know, as people are hating on that, let's bring this up too. We discussed we've never done like a solo Superman episode here on the 6M. We've talked about the character of Batman. He got his own episode here. And then we've done films as well. But like, we've not done like the Superman character as an episode. We've done the Black Superman episode, which was number 38 in 2021. And we talked a lot on that one, as we're going to do here today, Phil, a little bit about one of the reasons Superman has struggled. And I shouldn't say struggled. He's considered the first, or at least the first to really be, the first real superhero, I guess you could say. But he's not relatable, Phil. Like, he's not human. And Christopher Reeve's portrayal is fantastic and humanizes the character. But if you really look at it, there's no threat to Superman except kryptonite and magic, supposedly. So, like, how can I feel anything for this guy? Which is why a lot of people gravitate to Batman. I mean, in my opinion, Phil, that's always going to be the hook with this guy, is how do you get around the fact that you can't hurt him at all? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of building the idea of what does humanity mean to him? That's kind of the story of Superman. This is a guy that's not a man at a time like Captain America, but a man that is, kind of on an island alone as the sole survivor of his race. And he's tasked with protecting a race of people that's all he knows. And I think it's great to have this idea of humanity from the outside looking in, and somebody that wants to see the best in people. And because he wants to see the best in people, he feels like they need to be protected, and they deserve the chance to make mistakes and grow. And there's something so interesting about that in a character. It's in a lot of ways the exact opposite of Batman.
Because Batman's directly interfering.
Yeah, Batman's directly interfering, and Batman has seen the absolute worst in humanity. He saw it very on, absolute worst in humanity, and his immediate, although he believes in people as well, his immediate reaction is, I have to save humanity for themselves. I have to make sure that this does not happen to anybody else.
Yeah, and you're right. And then meanwhile, Superman's like, I can't be God. I can't be everywhere at one time. Because again, he has to allow people to live their lives and make their own mistakes and whatnot. But that part of the character aside, which as a Marvel kid growing up, for the most part, and I love the MCU, but like I'm always going to kind of bump into the fact that Superman is basically invincible. And, again, if not for that green rock, he'd have no weakness, essentially. Even Doomsday had to pound the living life out of him. And that, they destroyed the entire city of Metropolis to just get the guy even near death. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of always going to be a thing. So how much of the Donner cut, like when all this news started coming out, this was before all this Snyderverse hoo-ha started happening. When you started hearing about the Donner cut, what was your thoughts on it? Like, did you have an opinion? Like when you eventually saw it, did you see, I understand why they put this together?
Yeah, I have, I've heard some of the stories behind the scenes from it. I kind of understand Donner wanting his vision for it, but when I watch it, I am kind of like, oh, well, you solved this problem the same way you did in the first movie of him just going back in time and reversing all these things. And it's like, well, no, I don't want to see you do that twice. And that's not something that I think Superman should do in character to solve this problem. Like, it's kind of different in him doing it impulsively in the first movie to save Lois's life, but to do it again, I don't know. I don't know if we need to keep doing the mulligans.
Yeah, it seems way off kilter. They filmed parts 1 and 2 simultaneously together. It wasn't we did 1, then we did 2. They did both at the same time. And the idea supposedly was they were going to wrap up part 2 with Donner at the helm with this ending, but not part one. But part one, the way it was going, and then they wanted something, big in the end. So they decided, well, let's just use that ending here and then we'll figure out something for part two. But then, of course, Donner was off the film before it could even actually begin because of, and the story goes, Phil, is that he had a problem with one of the producers, or the producer, Pierre Spengler, who's a French producer. And as the story infamously goes, he had done an interview with Variety in December or in 78, and it was at a Christmas party. And he confirmed that while there had been tension, this is the producer talking, while there had been tension between him and Donner, he was proud of the film and looked forward to working with him on the sequel. And then this reporter contacts Donner, who responded with, "If he's on it, I'm not." So, Phil, there were problems right out the gate here. And then they had the whole thing with Brando, who sued the Salkinds for $50 million, claiming he'd never received a percentage of the film's gross, and filed a restraining order to prevent the use of his likeness. It was a big thing. It was everywhere. And that's why they didn't use his likeness in the sequel that we saw in the theaters. I mean, Phil, it just goes to show you, like, the human element behind these films is very much a thing. And no matter how strong the characters are, the actors or whatnot, you have to have everybody kind of playing for the same team and on the same page. But man, that rift between Spengler and Donner was big enough to screw up the second film, man.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But yeah, just even all this time later, I mean, even thinking about like some of the Justice League stuff and the Snyder Cut campaign, and just seeing even back then you had uh, studio meddling in these things, all the way back in the 80s. And that's kind of something that has dogged this genre for a while, because we also saw things like that with Fox as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And of course, it was, as we said before, the director on Superman 2 officially in the version that was released in theaters is Richard Lester, who had directed, of course, Hard Day's Night and Help. So he had a track record already. And, Phil, a lot of the comedy that's in this film, well, at least during the third act when the big fight scene's happening, is directly from Lester. And I was glad to see actually that Donner took that out in his cut, because it kind of seemed out of place. So
some of it is a bit too corny. It's a bit too goofy. Like,
slapstick.
Some of it just doesn't work.
Yeah, the slapstick part of it is just, it's like Keystone Cops or something. It's just too much. Bunch of gags, the ice cream and the toupee and the sliding around, the guy on the phone. Like, stop. What are we doing? Like, again, I grew up with that. So as a kid, I didn't hate any of it. But then watching it with, older eyes, I'm like, I got a soft spot for this film, but that's dumb. Like, this should be a very intense, serious moment for this character, and they're making light of it. Like, the kids are in the movie. You didn't have to do that in the third act. They're in the crowd watching. None of that was necessary. You know what I mean? You've already got them. So let's talk about the cast here, man. Of course, we know the late, great Christopher Reeve. I mean, Phil, for anyone, I don't care if it's Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill, Corn Sweat, whoever it is. I mean, good luck trying to replace this guy, or at least try to live up to a modicum of what Reeve brought to the role. Like, he'll always be Superman. And I think he got to a point in his life when he embraced that, which was good. But man, he was as great in this movie as he was in the first one, you think?
Yeah, I think he's all the bit as charming and likable as Superman. And he's all the more like subdued and kind of dopey in the glasses as Clark. He sells both very well, and then like just the transformation between both characters is it's incredible. Every time you watch him just shift his mannerisms everything, it's crazy. Like, just the scenes of him taking the glasses off, and he just his speech pattern and everything just completely changed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything about him. And like, he hunched, his shoulders slumped, his suits were baggy. He was very unsure of himself. He stuttered. he kept bumping into things and dropping things. We talked about this before, but he just totally encapsulated what Clark Kent really is. And then, of course, he brought the nobility to the Superman character. Who else do you think? Like, I mean, look, we talked ad nauseum about Marvel, and we'll continue to do so. But like Evans, I guess, as Cap, Downey as Iron Man, guys who completely embody the character. Reynolds as Deadpool, perhaps. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, God, man, to be able to that's just gold. To be able to make that happen is crazy. And Reeve at the time, it was just nuts, man.
Yeah, I think Chris Evans is a big one. Chris Evans at this point embodies Captain America. I just couldn't even imagine anybody else playing Captain America.
No. Well, we're getting the new film. I can't wait to see it, by the way. The Falcon version of Captain America, of course, Anthony Mackie.
Yes. But I mean, just the character Steve Rogers. Like, I can't imagine anybody else playing that character. And I mean, there are others that at this point, like Robert Downey Jr., you're right, is one. Some of the other ones are, just preference at this point, because I know some people are big fans of Andrew Garfield, or some people are big Toby fans, or some people are big into Tom Holland. So a lot of it is preference.
Yeah, I would say maybe, you got the Hulk thing. People have their favorite banner actor, and then you have, there can only be one Thor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Hemsworth is the only Thor. I can't think of anybody else that could do it.
Yes. Yeah, I would be interested to see if we ever got somebody to play Donald Blake and they weren't Thor all the time.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember. How did he call down the power of Thor?
Didn't he like tap his walking stick down and
That's
he used to say something?
I can't remember what he said. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it had to do with the walking stick, because the walking stick would transform into Mjolnir. Right.
I remember the Thing cartoon.
Thing ring, do your thing.
Heck yeah, man. Crazy. What if you get laryngitis and you can't say it? Like, I don't know. But yeah. Gene Hackman is back as Mr. Luthor. And there's like 3 or 4 different times where he hits you with, me? You want to kill me? The greatest criminal mind of our time? Like, it never gets old. He just keeps doing it, and it just keeps getting better and better. Gene Hackman's doing his thing here. I don't see a whole lot of difference between this portrayal and the other one. He's still very hungry for real estate. Lex Luthor, ruler of Australia, right? Freaking ridiculous. Of all the countries you could have picked, you picked Australia.
He's so over the top and when you really think about it, it almost feels like it shouldn't work, because we've seen so many people try to do the Gene Hackman Superman villain since then. He was extremely influential on this genre. But man, he's so great. I don't care how many times he does it. Like, he does like when he's in jail at the beginning of the movie, and he's explaining how he's gonna find his secret with the black box, and it's like, well, wait a minute. When you think about this too long, it all kind of falls apart. But in a moment when he's explaining it, it sounds very convincing.
It tracks alpha waves. What?
Yeah, I mean, his delivery of the lines, the way he stands, everything, just like that kind of that smirk he has and everything. It's so great. And you're right. The line he gives Zod in the movie, and Zod looks straight at him and goes, "Why do you say such things when you know I will destroy you for it?"
I love that.
He's just like, kill me and extinguish the greatest criminal mind of our time, Lex Luthor.
Oh yeah. Utterly ridiculous. I found it funny, that prison scene too, how Ned Beatty, the character of Otis, of course, he knew about Superman flying up north but like Lex didn't know. How did Otis know this?
I have no idea. How are they? How are they in the same jail?
How are they in the same
I've
jail?
always thought about that. Like, this guy was a multimillionaire, and he just somehow gets thrown in jail with the rest of the common folk. They have the campy, ridiculous striped prison uniforms.
Yes.
Yeah, everything about it. They broke out with a hot air balloon, which is just like, wait a minute.
A hot air balloon.
It's so ridiculous. But for that time period, the 80s, I guess. But yeah, Gene Hackman is incredible, man. What a phenomenal actor. What a phenomenal character actor. He just completely threw himself into the campiness of this role, and he's so great.
He's so awesome. It's really good. Like I can't gush enough about him. He's really great. And the some of the material, some of the lines are somehow he makes it sound good, even though some of the dialogue is a little
It's
But
very ridiculous. Like
yeah.
when towards the end where he's saying, "We did it. I helped to lure him right into our trap,"
Yeah.
and Superman just deadpans him. Too late, Luther. Too late.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember when he tells Zod about the plan? Luther, you're poisonous snake. He's all like, man, it's terrible. Yeah, who wrote that? Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I did like the fact that he asked told the one inmate he needed his Liberace record back.
Yes.
What the heck are we doing?
Such a ridiculous. Everything about it is so ridiculous, but I guess it's the 80s.
That's going to be how we explain everything, basically. That's the 80s. Because it's true.
Yeah. A lot of product placement in this movie just screams 80s. The big Marlboro truck that Superman gets thrown through at one point. He gets thrown past the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and yeah, just the way KFC looked back then.
Mm-hmm. The neon Coke sign.
Yes.
Jeez. Yeah, pretty terrible. But yeah, I'm here for it. And by the way, great point about him being thrown in a gin pop when he tried to blow California off the map.
Yeah.
He's in there with carjackers and petty criminals, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, not for some reason, not in a maximum security jail, or even when you think about how other millionaires have got thrown into like a minimum security jail where he's in there like playing squash or badminton, like nothing's an issue. I would think that would be more believable for the Luther character, but he of course would not be in the same jail with Otis. That doesn't make sense.
No. And then of course to round out that trio, Valerie Perrine. Perrine is back as Miss Tessmacher. She's back. And did you find it funny she just kind of like disappears? Whatever happened to her in this movie?
So she basically betrays him at the end of the first movie, and that's just kind of forgotten. And she helps break him out of jail. Then they make this trip up north, where their way of finding the Fortress of Solitude is they're on a single snowmobile.
Yes.
They didn't just fly there. We just cut to them in the middle of this snowy area on a snowmobile.
And she used the toilet in the Fortress of Solitude. Yeah. In the Donner cut, you can hear her flushing a toilet in the background. So Superman's got plumbing in the Fortress of Solitude?
I guess. whatever fits the plot is what happens in this movie. Sure. You can go on and on about certain things that happen. It's like, well, wait a minute. Where did that even come from?
Yeah, exactly. Where does that even come from? Like the big silky bed. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, exactly. They're in the middle of the Arctic in this big silky bed surrounded by all these crystals. Where did this come from? Or I don't care how many times I watch it. When Non tries to attack him and he throws that Superman logo at him that just turns into like this big cellophane net. It's like, well, what is this?
Terrible. They have powers, and the three criminals they'll have that we've never seen before in a Superman film.
Yeah, he just does all of these magical things that we've never seen Superman do. Like in a theatrical cut, his his way of solving his dilemma with uh his way of solving his dilemma now that Lois knows his secret identity is just like, wait, he can do that?
Right. The
Okay.
teleporting in the Fortress of Solitude, they're all doing it. When did that become a thing Superman could do?
I mean, even the teleporting thing, I could buy if you're just saying that they're moving so fast that the humans in the room couldn't see them.
I guess. But the sound effect's terrible.
Of course, because it's the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. The sound effect just sounds like it's teleportation.
Yeah, there are so many things in this movie when you think about it. It's like, well, wait a minute, why did he do that? Like when he starts losing the fight in Metropolis, and Zod and the other two are using their super breath to blow all of the civilians away, and he sees that he can't possibly win the fight because there are too many people around, and he doesn't turn to them and go, "Hey, follow me." He just looks around and just flies away. And
Yeah.
so the people in the city think that he just abandoned them because he didn't say anything. He just turned around and flew away.
Yeah, he just splits.
Don't leave with Superman.
Yeah. Oh, none of that made. Well, the Donner version didn't clean up all that, but when the bit where the woman is standing underneath the rafter with the baby carriage going, "Oh, my baby, no, my baby." I'm like, move the baby out of the way. Like,
Yeah.
she never moves.
Yeah. All of that stuff is so ridiculous. It's so bad. I every time I see it and he flies away, I just die laughing because he doesn't he doesn't try to explain it or anything. He just turns around and flies away, and doesn't not give a reaction like, "Oh, he really is a coward."
Yeah. Yeah.
You can hear some black kid in distance. Man, Superman didn't do nothing.
Yeah. Because he tells his friend, "Come on, let's go." They're over it. They leave. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so bad. Like, why did they put that in the movie?
Oh, one guy calls him a phony too.
You big phony.
Yeah. It's like the Family Guy phony thing. Yeah.
You big phony.
Terrible. Well, the Donner version did clean some of that up. The lady with the baby carriage wasn't screaming "my baby" for 90 seconds on the rafter, which she could have moved safely. Instead, he just saves the baby and she yells "thank you." So they cleaned that up. They took all the humor out, which is thank goodness for that. Yeah. So I have to say the third act is cleaned up quite a bit, except for the fact that you're right. He just takes off and doesn't say anything to anybody. And plus, in the Donner cut, they didn't do the big S off the chest.
Yeah, that was
terrible.
There are a bunch of other scenes like that of him saving people or doing something. And it's kind of like, well, why was this even a thing? Like when they're at Niagara Falls and the kid is standing on the ledge and he's like switching his hands back and forth saying, "Look at me, Mom." It's like, well, why would he even think to do that? Why would this kid do that? That just so he could get put in a situation where he would fall off and Superman would need to save him?
He did it twice.
Yeah, why what was he thinking? Or the whole rescue in Paris where Lois crawls underneath the elevator.
What was the plan? And
he eventually had to come and save her. And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, well, what if he never came? Why'd you do that? What was your plan after you crawled under there?
Yeah. How was you going to get out? Yeah, because you can't. I have this thing about heights. So even in a film, when I know the actor's not in danger, it's hard for me to watch because I'm a big baby. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm dead. I'm passing out at this point. I'm dying. There's no way. The fall won't kill me. I'll just fall out because I've passed out.
Mm-hmm.
God almighty. Yeah, dumb. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. How about, and now we're just picking the movie apart for the sake of it. But hey, look, I'm doing it. How about, and by the way, the whole Paris bit, kids, is not in the Donner cut. Thank goodness they took all that crap out. Don't have to worry about it. But it's here in the original version. When he flies to Paris to save her, Phil, this is the same guy that flies around the earth at the speed of light. And it took him 2.5 minutes or something to get to freaking France.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny part with the kid that fell as well. It's like, we'll save him. He's falling, and the whole time they're saying, "Look, save him," and he's still falling. And this whole time, he goes and has enough time to go and change his clothes and come back out and fly out and save the kid. He's still falling this entire time.
The entire time.
It's so
What
funny,
happened in
man.
Doctor? What was the when Strange put him in the Loki, and Loki's like, "I've been falling for 6 hours," or whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah, that was from Dark World.
Yes.
But yeah, the kid is falling this entire time. He never lands and actually hits the water. Superman manages to come out there and fly and catch him before any of that happens.
Oh, it's wonderful. Just can't beat that. Comic book science, baby. Hey kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. B-O-I-N-K, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. And look, this guy has raced the Flash. He should technically be able to swoop down as Clark and swoop back up, and no one would even have seen him do it. Anyway, we're not here to lambaste the film. It's a classic. Everybody calm down. It's going to be fine. But there are some bits of nonsense in here. Let's see. We've got Jackie Cooper, legendary actor, back as Perry again, of course. We've got Mark McClure back as Jimmy Olsen. They're both back. The Daily Planet. They only serve the purpose of being set dressing in the Daily Planet offices. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason they're here. That's fine, I suppose. Margot Kidder, of course, Phil is back as Lois Lane and is awesome. She chain smokes, but she's making freshly squeezed orange juice.
Yeah, I love it. And just the way she's making orange juice in just like the most wasteful and ridiculous fashion possible. It's like, but this is for health reasons while you're like putting cigarettes out in this ashtray full of cigarette butts. But I kind of love the idea that she smokes in this movie because to me, Lois should always be a character that has like a bit of an edge to her and that has all of these kind of tendencies and bad habits that you wouldn't expect from Superman. I don't like the idea of her being like perfect. She needs to be like neurotic and all of these other things.
Her hair needs to always be a mess. She always needs to have bags under her eyes. She needs to never sleep.
Yeah.
Because that's who she is. Yeah.
So I like that about her. I also like that they play off the trope of Lois willing to throw herself off of tall things to try and convince him to admit he's Superman. That has happened in more than one media at this point.
Yep.
I love that he doesn't actually reveal himself as well. He just lets her fall in the water, and the entire time he's saying, swim, swim. And then he just reveals himself anyway.
Did you notice that he uses the heat vision through the lenses on his glasses?
Yes.
Yeah. And some strong glasses there, Phil.
Yeah, they're fine. There are no lenses in those glasses, probably.
That's some Krypton material. Yeah, how about Terrence Stamp pronouncing it Krypton through the entire effing film?
Krypton.
It's like Billy D calling Han Han through the whole movie. No one ever calls him out on it.
Krypton sounds like a it sounds like a suburb outside Jersey or something. Krypton.
Krypton, New Jersey. Yeah. Speaking of Terrence Stamp, he is General Zod. And Phil, without this film, we do not get the classic bow, son of Jor-El, kneel before Zod. Classic.
His delivery of so many of the lines is just really great. Just the blank stare on his face and everything. And you really buy the idea of just like this culture shock of an alien that doesn't understand humanity at all. So he has this coldness and this almost like robotic way of moving, and it's so perfect for Zod as an alien. but also like he has that intensity, like you said as well, where he yells and gets into a deep voice as well. Uh, the when he does almost like the wrestling promo when the president tries to call for help, I laugh at it every time.
Mm,
He's just like,
yeah.
Superman, save us! Where's the Superman you speak of?
Yeah.
Come to me! Come to Zod!
Yeah, and when Lex mentions him, he's like, where is it? Where? I don't know. Where is it? I don't see him. Where is he? Yeah.
Oh man, just I mean, just the very deliveries is just so great because his delivery in that scene, where he's yelling at the TV screen, is completely different. Um, in the scenes where he's with Lex, and Lex is being Lex, and he's just like, "What are you even doing? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why would you do such a thing?"
Oh, his delivery. You're right. His delivery is fantastic. He says something like, define if you dare, or however he said. It's freaking great, man.
Yeah, man, great when he finally gets Superman to kneel to him, and he falls for the ruse at the end of the movie, and he breaks his hand, and just the way that he yells out of pain, it's just so it's so iconic, man.
Yeah. Yeah. As if he's never felt pain. Like, but Superman is breaking your fingers essentially. So
Yeah, which Superman does that as well in this movie. There's just so many outrageous things that I guess would fit in character, but it's so unintentionally funny. When Clark gets into the fight with the guy in the diner, um, I laugh at it every time, man. Every time I see it, I laugh because
it's so good.
it's just like I wonder every time what does he think is going to happen? Because he's like, "Excuse me, sir, I'd like you to step outside." And he just doesn't even turn around and look at him all. He's like, I said I'd like for you to step outside. And he's just like, whatever, get this dork out of here. um, yeah. And of course, we get the iconic line of, my blood. I see my own blood.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find it interesting that the choice for the truck driver is like just this little old dude. He's not big. He's not threatening. He's not menacing at all. He's just a little regular looking guy, man.
Yeah. Big, big jerk. But that just fits so much with the Superman character of, um, he even as Clark just wants to see the good in humanity. He's just kind of like, oh well, this guy's a jerk. I'll solve this. He's a big bully, and it's almost like he's treating everything like this guy's a big bully that's preying on this diner, and everybody's just kind of looking at it like, no, this guy's a regular. He comes in here all the time and spends his money here.
Yeah. And they roll their eyes at him when he comes in, like they don't like him. Like, you don't have to let him eat here. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. What is your stance on him coming back and um basically bullying that guy at the end of the movie? Because I know some people that are like, that's so out of character for Superman, because at this point you could kill this guy. Why would you then come back and do that? um but I've always kind of looked at it like he made a fool of him in a very palatable way, because he can't kill him. It's not like he walked straight in there and like punched this guy at full strength in the face. um he just kind of made him look stupid.
so I'm okay with it as long as it didn't kill the guy. And newsflash, kids, this Superman's not a murderer. Hey, look out. But, and by the way, Zod managed to, not get his neck broken, Phil. Let's call that out here. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we also get a version of that in the Man of Steel movie where somebody's a jerk to him in a bar, so he walks outside and destroys his truck.
Sure.
And it's just kind of like, I almost feel like that's worse because you took away this guy's livelihood. That's how he makes his money. But it's like, if you just make a fool of this guy and he's like spending a few days in hospital and he just looks stupid, he can't show his face in that diner and act the same way anymore. That's a bit different.
I'm okay with it because this is a weird example, but like I don't blow the horn as if lay down on it and don't let up like a D-bag. All right. But if you cut me off with no signal and I almost rear end you, I'm going to pop the horn at you. I'm not going to flip you off. I'm a grown man. I'm not going to track you down or speed or tailgate you. But I do it because I need to let you know, number one, I'm here. Number two, the next time you decide to drive that way, maybe, just maybe, you'll use your signal next time. So like, I don't think it's as much about him getting revenge for him losing face as much it is about letting this guy know you can't treat people this way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always read it as he was trying to teach the guy a lesson. Like, well,
Yes.
how dare you? You come in here and you're very unpleasant. You make everybody miserable, just because you can. And it's like, well, pick on me that way. And it's like, well, you can't.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
um, but yeah, he does everything in such a cartoonish way that it's almost like I can't get too upset about it. Because I mean, at best, he let him break his own hand. And then what did he just set him in some food and then pushed him into a pinball machine?
Yeah.
I mean, considering what he could have done to this guy, it's not too bad.
Not too bad. Could have been much, much worse. Again, could have snapped his left neck on live TV. But yeah, no, look, yeah, not that bad. And and I know we're bouncing like crazy here, right? But like the whole thing about, because I have to get your opinion on this. He gives up his powers. Talking about powers, he gave up his powers for her. In the original version that you and I have known for years, that everyone's known for years, basically, it feels kind of icky. Like in a way, the way it plays out in the fortress. But in the Donner version, as soon as they get there, like they're in love. She's always loved him. He's always loved her. She now knows. He's revealed his secret. We get the shot of them, not in a huge bed where you question where it came from. It's a tight close-up shot of them asleep in each other's arms. The next scene is him dressed as Clark talking to Jor-El, basically saying, I'm ready to give this up. I want a life now. Whereas the original version, Phil, is he's in the Superman suit telling Jor-El or his mom, essentially, because Brando, they didn't include him, I'm not going to do this. I want my own life, blah, blah, blah. And she says, well, you got to give up your powers. And then he sleeps with her. Which version makes the most sense to you here?
I think this version with Jarrell makes the most sense because I mean he says explicitly in the movie of, you know, I discovered this crystal. That's how I learned where I came from. That's how I learned about my father and what I needed to do. And so it makes sense for him to then decide, um, if I'm going to talk to anybody about this tough decision, it have to be Jarrell.
Mm.
It kind of mirrors the scene from Mask of the Phantasm where Bruce is crying in front of the grave and he's saying, "I didn't expect to be happy. I let me go. Let me be happy. Let me have a life."
Good call.
And so I think that works better. But you're right. It does kind of turn into like, hey, I'm just gonna shirk all of my responsibilities and just sleep with this woman because that's what I want to do. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's weird. Like all of this stuff is happening in the world. Zod is like doing all of this wild stuff in it's like small towns, and then he ends up in DC and uh, making the United States bend to his will. And this whole time, he's just like, well, I really don't want to be a superhero no more. I think I'm just gonna have sex with this woman.
Yeah, you couldn't have like done a real quick checkup of the globe, make sure there's nothing you need to like take care of first.
No, that they don't even. He doesn't even seem to care about that at all. He's just like, that'll be fine.
Yeah, they're okay. Hey, they were getting along before I got here.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you could throw in the head canning that he did not know that the Kryptonians were coming, so he had no idea that there would be a big enough threat that needed him to exist. Um, but it's just funny how the scenes are edited. It makes it seem that he just doesn't care.
Just doesn't care. Yeah. By the way, we spent like 3 minutes talking about that truck driver scene. Do you realize that it never should have happened at the end of the Donner cut? Because he reversed everything.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
So, well, I would say this. Because he reversed everything, he didn't forget. So he didn't forget how the truck driver treated him, but the truck driver forgot all about him. And so
he had no idea.
Yeah, so he was just walking in there to teach him a lesson because he hadn't forgot that, and he was just. It was kind of like that's a dangling thread that he wanted to still address.
Wouldn't have been awesome if like he's back to like get revenge on this poor dude that I'm calling him a poor dude that doesn't know what he did in this other timeline. Wouldn't it have been great if he'd said, "Excuse me, sir, I think you're sitting in my favorite seat." What if the guy went, "Oh, I'm sorry, pal, I'll move over."
Yeah,
Like, what would he have done then? Like, would he have picked a fight with him just to prove a point, or would it have been over? Okay, well, I'm just going to leave. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, he comes in and does kind of like a variation of what Peter comes in and says to the guy that killed Uncle Ben. He's like, "You remember me? Who are you?" He's like, "You know my face. You know what you did."
Yeah. Scarlet Witch telling Thanos, "You took everything from me." He goes, "I don't even know who you are."
Yeah.
In Endgame. I don't even know you. What are we doing here?
You will.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've already destroyed your truck. You're next. Yeah. Superman in the black suit getting vengeance at the end of the film.
Yeah, no, just the idea of that guy like walking out into the alley and like all you see is his glowing eyes, and he's just like funny. Never seen garbage eat garbage.
Yeah. What a major insult, right? Never. Well, fun. It's a fun thing to me. Yeah. Come on. It's terrible.
Yeah, which I mean, even just the idea of him sitting there being a jerk, like, yeah, give me some more of this garbage.
Yeah.
That's so 80s and ridiculous.
And she's like, that's my signature dish here. Like I've worked a lot. I've worked hard. I built this place up from nothing to make it what it is. You're insulting my food. Like, come on. By the way, rounding out the criminal trio, Zod and crew, the three criminals, the unholy trinity. I don't know what to call them. Sarah Douglas as Ursa, who had a real dead sexy goth quality happening, Phil, in this movie, if I must say.
Mm-hmm.
And also Jack O'Halloran as Non. Great character, dumb as a rock, typical and stereotypical, 7 foot tall, and didn't get a lot to do, but he was great. When he uses the heat vision successfully on the National Guard, and he's just looking at Zod, smiling at him, and Zod just giving him this look like, I hate this guy.
Yeah, he does several gags that are very funny. When Perry tried to hit him with the globe on his desk, and he just kind of just stares off like, what? And then just like lifts him up and puts him through the ceiling.
Knocks him out.
Yeah. Yeah, something about the way Perry goes through the ceiling and his neck just goes limp. Every time I see it, it just looks so funny to me. It's like this.
Like you realize you may have just killed him. Like snapped his neck, you know. By the way, there's a take that didn't make the film, either version, thank God. The little kid that's yelling at Zod to put his dad down. By the way, the kid sounds British. Did you pick up on that? He sounded British. Mm-hmm. Out in the cornfields of Nebraska or wherever they are.
Right.
Yeah. Non kills that kid.
What?
Yes. The red siren he had in his hand, the kid takes off on his bicycle. He chucks it at him and like kills the kid with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And you expect the townspeople to be in horror, just to repel and shock and horror. And instead, this one woman just goes, he was just a little boy. That was it. And Ursa steps up and goes, he will never grow into a man. And I'm like, thank God this didn't make the cut. What a terrible thing to do, man.
That line makes it even funnier. Like, wait a minute, this is awful. And then she's just like, yeah, he'll never grow into be a man.
I mean, terrible. Like, I'd send it to you. It's really bad. Like, I just don't.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I hadn't either, actually. I'd heard about it, never saw it. Yeah, I had to look it up. Again, I'm glad that didn't make either version, which is good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, they take over that little town. It reminded me a lot of Thor when they sent what's the character Loki sent?
The Destroyer?
That's it. Yeah. It reminded me of that, except everyone in this town is so dumb. Not their fault, but like it's like the crowd in the end in Metropolis when they think Superman's dead, and the crowd is like, "Let's get him!"
Right. Yeah. See how well that works.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Spider-Man films where it's like,
Yeah,
you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things from that fight that do not age well, but because this movie has so much nostalgia that I don't groan at it, I just kind of like laugh and continue to enjoy the movie because I'm just used to it. Like when Lois is looking out the window watching the fight, and the woman next to him was like, "He's as strong as Superman," and she just pushes her down.
And that girl seems happy. She's smiling.
She just pushes her out the way, like, "Get out of the way."
Yeah. It'd be great if she like chucked her out the window. Wouldn't that have been awesome? Lois turns into a cold-blooded killer. Yeah. But I'm thinking that one of the four of these people is trying to save your city, and you're having a cackle because one of the ones that's not trying to save you is bigger and stronger or whatever. Like, all right, man, whatever we say. I gotta say, man, the trio of criminals is iconic. If I would love if, of course, rest in peace, Richard Pryor. If that movie had never happened, I would love to have gotten another shot at the criminals here. Again, dude, together they look great.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue Terrence Stamp's performance is one of the best of the film, in my opinion, because he never winks at the camera. He could have at any time.
Yeah.
Man, he's awesome. I think the three of them together are fantastic.
I agree. He's just very cold and he just has that kind of blank stare, and he has this like believable cruelty to him. I really like him. He's very iconic. Uh, you're never going to forget just that iconic scene of the piece of glass flipping through space with them in it. I don't care how many times I've seen it. It looks very dated now, but man, the first time you see this movie, it's just like, what is this? This is kind of cool.
Yeah, the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, just that depiction of the Phantom Zone is like, well, why is it floating through space? Why isn't it just like stationary?
Why isn't it stationary? Yeah.
But just still, just the glass flipping through space, and you just see their faces screaming and bang against it. It's a great visual.
And by the way, like, did you ever watch Krypton, the show? It didn't last very long.
I did not.
It was actually a good show. I did not think I'd care about it because it's about Superman's grandfather. Like, what are we doing?
Oh, boy.
It's actually not a bad show. Their interpretation of the Phantom Zone was fantastic because it's an actual place.
Yeah,
but like,
that's what it should be.
Yeah, if you get sent there, brother, you're there. Like, of course, they found a way to get out, but when he gets sent there, the way they portray it, you're like, he's screwed. Like, you can't. There's no hope. Like, yeah, it's a much different interpretation.
Yeah, they use it in other Superman media. I think they use it in. I know there's a version of it in Young Justice. I think there's a version of it in Justice League as well that I'm forgetting about. But it's in the original animated series as well, because there's a Phantom Zone projector in there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, comic book elements abound, as they should. The source material for Superman is so rich. Even by the standards of the timing of this film, you still have, let's see, 38, 37 for Superman, or 38? 38's Batman. 37's Superman, I guess. So by the time 1980 gets here, you still have, 43, 44 years already of the character at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give or take. So yeah, but yeah, already history to draw from. What do you think about the plot here? I love the plot. I think on paper, the plot is awesome. The execution is weird. A lot of 80s stuff happening, but I love the idea of finally, Phil, we get to see, it's like we finally get to see Jedis fighting each other, and one of them's not an old man. We actually get to see superpowered individuals fighting each other. And this is like the first time, of course, because, comic book movies per se, but like, what do you think about this plot overall?
It's a bit clunky at times. There are some conveniences here, like you set up the idea of there being a machine for him to get rid of his powers, so that you could have that MacGuffin to use later in the movie to depower the villains. And that's one of those things. Like there's a few things in the plot where it kind of falls apart if you think about it too long. Like, well, like just like I'm saying earlier, with Clark deciding, okay, well, I just want a normal life now. And just how quickly he gets to that decision, and it doesn't seem like he thinks of any of the consequences until he gets into the fight at that diner. And then that's when he's like, I have to go back. It's like, no, not that the world's in trouble or nothing. You lost a fight in the bar, so now you got to go get your powers back.
Yeah. This again on paper, I love the idea. Some of the execution is
Yeah, the execution of it is spotty at best at times.
Yeah, for sure. We had to, by the way, shout out the President of the United States in this film, E.G. Marshall. And brother, if you believe that's his natural born hair color, I got beachfront property in Ohio, sell to you dirt cheap.
Some beach property in Krypton.
In Krypton. The leaves are falling this time of year in Krypton. You'd love it.
Beautiful foliage in Krypton.
Yeah, foliage. Raw the ice. It's a freaking ice planet. I don't know if it's never described that way, but it just looks like a barren ice planet in the films, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess we're supposed to see it as crystals and not ice, but
sure.
Once you then have the visual of the Fortress of Solitude out in the Arctic, it's like you can't get rid of the connection to ice after that.
And you're on a budget in the 80s, and special effects were only so good. But like, where's the rest of the citizens of Metropolis? Where are they? Like, seems fairly desolate. I don't know. Do they have like infrastructure? Do they have trash pickup? Do they have sewer? The Fortress of Solitude has sewer system, evidently.
I guess so.
So there's just random questions.
Yeah, we're supposed to believe that Miss Tessmacher also was holding it for 2 days.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I forgot about that bit. And by the way, speaking of stuff that doesn't connect together too well, all right. They had what we assume is a rental car. Okay. Clark and Lois did a rental car. They're masquerading as a married couple for that honeymoon suite. And one of my favorite lines of Margaret Kidder of all time is, "Here's my hand, Clark, hold it." I love it. I just love it. And so we assume they have a rental car. He flew her to the fortress as Superman, gave up his powers. How'd they get out of there?
I have no idea. The same way that Clark got out there to begin with, to throw the crystal into that lake.
Oh, that's right. How did he get out there? Well,
he could have flew at that point.
He could have flew. He didn't know he could fly.
That's right. That's right. When he did do that, he didn't fly there. That's right.
Yeah,
because
he flew out in the suit. The suit was there waiting on him.
That's right.
So that Fortress of Solitude's all purpose, and just like you said, conveniently answers a lot of questions. Yeah. Takes care of a lot of faux pas in this story. So yeah, that was something I bumped into, and I don't know if I had ever thought about. Wait a minute, how'd they get out of here? Yeah. Still know where Miss Tessmacher is.
Maybe there's a teleportation machine in the Fortress of Solitude that teleported them back to the city.
Well, you know what? If we're going to go comic book science on this, I guess we could say that. The president that we mentioned, E.G. Marshall, is actually Ellen's father in Christmas Vacation, and I'd never pieced that together either.
It's funny.
Totally missed that.
Yeah, that's one of those things about this movie. That's an iconic shot of Superman bringing the roof back to the White House, which
Mm-hmm.
uh, get the idea that he had to go get the roof with the flag still standing on it. Um, and he comes back, but just that shot of him standing on top of the White House with the superhero pose next to the flag waving next to him is such a Superman visual.
Yeah. And that's not the Donner cut. But yeah, I have mixed feelings about seeing him fly with that flag. I understand why it's been done. But, in 2024 and plus next year when the movie comes out, I don't know if it's a great look. Like,
I mean, truth, justice, and the American way.
I guess so. But like, how's the rest of the world view Superman? Like, I get it. It was fine for its time, but do we evolve this now and say that he's a hero for all seasons? No pun intended. What do you think?
I mean, the way that the rest of the world must look at us as a superpower in general, the way that the world looks at us as the country that use nuclear nuclear deterrence, but has told everybody else they cannot.
Yep. We can have this stuff. Y'all can't. We just can't trust y'all.
Yeah, no. Listen, we were the only country that bombed a civilized city, but you guys, you're not allowed to have these weapons.
Yeah. Japan still doesn't have an army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys can have these weapons. You can't be trusted. We can sanction everybody else, but we can have nuclear deterrence.
Yeah. Well, foreign people, Phil, can't trust them,
Yeah. So, we get to have a Superman.
Sure.
If that ship was supposed to crash in Russia, then save that for some elsewhere comic.
Yeah. We've never done Red Sun here, which we may tackle Red Sun at some point.
Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you.
It's such an interesting idea that he lands in the Soviet Union, the ship. But like, what if the thing had landed in Germany? What if it had landed in, I don't know, Canada, where it wouldn't have made that much difference? Like, you know what I mean? How far down the rabbit hole can you go with that?
Yeah. At some point, him landing in Germany could have been a colossal disaster.
Ooh, yeah. Well, a lot of comic books been written in the past 60 years, so maybe it's already been written.
I don't know if we need that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want what if the Nazis won. I don't think we need that.
Yeah, we've already had it. There was a TV show and there's been books and whatnot. I'm like, it's interesting, but this alternative history thing, I don't know. I think it depends on what the story is and how well it's written. If I'm down for it, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. We've talked a lot about the Donner cut here versus the original. Do you prefer the way the Donner cut wraps this up with the reversing time and none of it happened, or you prefer the magic kiss that made her forget everything?
They're both not very good. But I think I prefer the magic kiss because he did the he did the speed run around the world the first time. So it didn't really make sense for him to reverse everything, especially because a good deal of what happened was his fault. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's him fixing his mistake, but I don't. It just doesn't strike me as something Superman would do. I guess I'm going to take all of the Japanese magic girl stuff that he does in this movie, like during the cellophane logo and um, somehow having a magic kiss that can erase memories.
Yeah, and then he teleports. He can teleport now.
Yeah.
It's weird. He's got magic krypton glasses, which don't melt from the heat of his heat vision.
Yeah, doesn't he spin around in the first movie and his costume is on?
Yes.
See? He's like a Magic Girl character from Japan.
Like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Like how Linda Carter used to change into Wonder Woman. Yeah. Yeah, this whole thing's manga. The whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking nuts. I will say this. I mentioned about the big fight in the third act between the three. I still don't know what to call them. Do we have an official comic book title for these three criminals as a unit?
No, I guess just the Kryptonians.
The Kryptonians. Or the Krypton.
The Road Kryptonians? I don't know.
I was going to try to pronounce it. The Kryptonins. I don't know. How Zod maybe would pronounce it.
Krypton.
The Kryptonins. I don't know. Can't be. Yeah, I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah.
The three ne'er-do-wells. I don't know. But I will say that fight is not great in some regards. Yeah.
It's not. But it's just for that time period and
sure
the effects that were available then.
The kick in midair and Superman like barely like it's like, brushing away a bug with your foot. He barely, and then Zod's like, and it throws him all the way back and stuff. I did crack up at the times when Zod was flying. He does it twice, where something big's about to happen. You can hear Zod. He's like, throw it, and then it shows him flying. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. But like you said, it's the 80s. We're going to keep using that.
Yeah. A lot of things in this movie are very dated, but it just depends on when is the first time you watched it. It has this charm and appeal to it that if you discovered it in the 80s, that because of nostalgia, you just think that this is kind of just a fun movie. I can see you discovering this now and being like, what am I watching? What's going on?
What is this? Yeah.
You guys like this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got its moments. Yeah. I can understand why the third act, the big fight scenes at night, for the sake of production and effects and stuff, I guess. But it always felt weird to me. It was at night, even as a kid. I felt like Superman's in the daylight and Batman's at night. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you bump into that at all, or are you just used to seeing it now?
I think thematically, I agree that it makes sense for Batman to have this big fight because he uses darkness as kind of his ally. Superman is a guy that is like out in daylight. He does all of his work, most of his work in daylight, and he kind of has nothing to hide. At one point, Batman is an urban legend. Superman is somebody that doesn't care about hiding. But at the same time, I do like this idea of these three bad guys coming to Metropolis and destroying things, and they're like, "Where's the Superman guy? We've waited all day for him."
Yeah,
we're just gonna keep destroying things until he comes here, and then the sun comes down. He's still not there, and they're just gonna keep destroying things.
And Zod being all chill and laid back is like, "Oh, good, he's here." He's real dialed down. He's fine. Yeah.
This is it. This guy.
Yeah. Oh, wait, he cares about this people. And she's like pets. And he's like, I suppose so. It's so good. I was very much here for that.
Yeah.
I love that bit. Yeah, because once you find out that he cares about people, well, then you got him. Because, hey, so which Zod do you prefer? You prefer this Zod or the Zod from the Snyderverse?
Now, give me original Zod from 1980s. And I think Michael Shannon is great. I think he's a great actor. I think he does well in the role. There are some weird things like him climbing up that building like a cat for some reason.
Yeah.
There are bits of that movie that I feel like could be so much better if you fleshed out the characters and it wasn't just, hey, let's do these big action set scenes because we couldn't do this before. Everything that we're describing about Zod and his delivery and his presence, it doesn't quite have the same effect in those movies because it's more show and less tell. You can have him and his henchmen just destroy things and do these like incredible feats, so you don't have to do any of the character building.
Yeah, that's fair.
And not to say that he's not still a good character in that movie, but I think that
Sure.
they did. There was a lot of less is more in the original Superman movie.
And the bit with we've joked about it here about him snapping Zod's neck, and people who love Snyder and think he is, I don't know, the best thing ever for some weird reason, defend that moment and say, well, what was he supposed to do? And I'm like, that didn't really happen, right?
Mhm.
This wasn't a factual account of history. This was written that he didn't have a choice. Maybe don't write it. Write it where he does have a choice. Like, what are we doing? That was purposely done. That was a choice. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Freaking nuts.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of in character for Superman to feel like there's always a choice.
Yeah.
So when you tell me there is no choice, that I don't feel like that's something that Superman would believe in. And I could be wrong, but that's just my interpretation of the character.
Yeah, there's always a choice. You're Superman. Of course there's a choice. Like, you could do anything, basically. We talked about the box office at the beginning of this one. We will say on its opening weekend in the US and Canada, Superman 2 broke box office records with a first day gross of 4.3 million, which probably doesn't sound like much now. At the time, huge. The next day, it grossed 5.5 million. At the time, was the highest single box office day, surpassing the record previously held by, you got it, Star Wars in 77 with 4.5 million. It also produced highest grossing weekend up to that time with 14.1 million, surpassing the record 11.9 million set by the highly regrettable Star Trek the Motion Picture film from 79, and the 13.1 million 4-day weekend set by Superman in its third weekend. So this movie delivered. Feel this movie stayed true to the first. There was not a lot of crazy deviation. The characters are correctly represented. They don't repeat things to the point that you're sick of it. It actually feels like a continuation of the story, which is what a sequel should be, which is why I think, apart from the suit and Christopher Reeve being freaking awesome, is why this film today has a Rotten Tomatoes score of like 83%. It continues to be held in high regard. What do you think? Is it part one or part two for you for this trilogy?
I think it's two in a lot of ways, because I think there's something so iconic about the three Kryptonians and the fight with Superman, and even them crossing paths with Lex. It all at that time it almost felt like, well, how is Superman going to get out of this? It's not just that he's going up against Lex, who's smarter than him, but thinks he's smarter than him. But he's also going up against three Kryptonians.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
Um,
call.
yeah, and I mean, there's stuff about the first one that I really enjoy the first movie, but the whole real estate scam is just so hokey.
And we've done the Superman Returns here, and we've talked about, the fact that they basically mimic the entire plot of the first movie for Superman Returns.
Yeah, and a big problem with that movie is that there's no one for Superman to punch. So we get a
Right.
bunch of like really cool rescue scenes, and we get to see Superman do some amazing things, but he doesn't punch a lot of people in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That one, kids, is available from 2023, May 16th, episode 141 in the archives. Go check it out. Iconic moments in this movie for sure. Ursa going, "Oh, Superman," which I love. A lot of this movie's frozen in my brain because as a kid, I loved it so much because I grew
Yeah,
up with this movie, man.
yeah, I think a lot of it is nostalgia, and so I love this movie. I don't care how many times I watch it, and just how dated and campy it feels. It just takes you back to that time period of discovering. It's the same reason why um, I will still go back and watch 60s Batman. I used to watch 60s Batman every day. Um, and
Mm.
so as campy and silly as it is, I just still have so much fun watching it, because it's just a childhood memory.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up with that as well. Yeah. At the time, it was wonderful. Didn't have any idea how silly it was until as you start getting a little bit older.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, this is a little hokey.
Yeah, and even the stuff that is bad and looks dated, it's just funny now. Just like the rubber shark that's trying to bite him on his leg, and he pulls out the shark repellent. It's it's so stupid, but it's funny. Because Adam West is great, and he dives headfirst in. And I feel like the same thing happens here with Christopher Reeves and Gene Hackman. All of these actors dive in, and it doesn't feel like they're phoning it in.
No, and like it all begins and ends with Reeve. He is the one that ties it all together, and it's absolutely the right part. I mean, again, dude, I've repeated it so many times. It's like the tagline of this show: you got to get the right people,
Mm-hmm.
and they just got the right guy. None of this works. Like Superman 3, as bad of a film as that is, there are some dramatic moments in that movie when he basically turns heel. And Christopher Reeve is great. The movie's bad, but
Very
like,
bad movie.
yeah, but he's, of course, his performance is not the problem. It's
No.
everything around him.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve's performance, some of the more iconic visuals and things that work. One of the greatest superhero movie soundtracks ever.
Mm.
Um, you'd be hard pressed to find another superhero theme that is as good as Richard as is this Elfman or is this
That's John Williams.
John Williams, of course,
Mhm.
Star Wars fame as well. But yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find another superhero theme that's as good as the Superman theme from the '80s. Just perfect.
So good. Yeah, you're right. That song is, I can listen to that song anytime and it does something for you. Doesn't it just motivate you?
Hypes you up, man. I don't care. I don't care when you hear it. Hypes you up. It's kind of that same way, but again, I think it's just kind of the time period when you see these things.
Mm.
And these people that make music, they're smarter than we are because they understand, um, uh, setting the mood with music. They understand like amplifying tension and building to like triumphant crescendos. That's why these superhero themes work. Like I think of that every time I see Spider-Man 2 and the beginning of it, and just how it starts where you just hear like the drums starting it and it starts to swell up into the big theme, and I get hyped every time I hear it. That's why
Mm.
anytime it comes on TV, I'll end up sitting down and watching it because that theme song just hooks you in.
Oh, it so does. Yeah, it's really good. And by the way, of course, the original score for Superman is John Williams. We're right about that. However, Williams did not have a good time with the director here.
Oh boy.
All kinds of drama. Williams split, said he couldn't get along with Lester. Lester replaced him with Ken Thorne, who was a frequent composer he'd worked with, which explains why we get the average white bands pick up the pieces, two different versions of it in the diner. Yeah.
I think that's what makes it even funnier than he's like in this diner having this comical like almost schoolyard fight with this guy with pick up the pieces playing.
So ridiculous. Did you notice at the reprieve at the end when he comes back, it's the same song, but it's slowed way down?
Yes.
Dude.
Yes.
What are we doing?
No, because Clark got to come in and handle his business, man. You got to give him some bad to come in here and rough this guy up to.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, how bad is that? Yeah, freaking crazy, man. Well, kids, there you have it. There is Superman 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. Guys, you've done Superman Returns. You've done the first Superman. You've done Superman 2. Next week, you can expect Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. Well, I'll tell you this. Don't hold your breath for fear of passing out. Never say never. But there's a reason why we haven't done Man of Steel. Any interest in doing Man of Steel, by the way?
I wouldn't mind just revisiting it just to see it, but yeah.
I mean, I know what my answer is, but yeah, I feel like we've covered it so much on all the other Snyder episodes and on the Superman episodes too.
Yeah.
Without covering it, we've already covered it. As we wrap this up, what are you expecting or hoping for from this new Superman flick we're going to get in 2025?
I'm hoping that they capture the kind of spirit and the wonder of Superman. And that's why I love about these movies. As much as we can sit here and laugh about how campy they are and how some scenes in this movie it's like why'd you do that? I think people want to go to the movies and have fun. And at the end of the day, these characters, these movies, they're supposed to be fun. And
Mm.
if it takes itself too seriously, if it's too dark and grim, you can go and find a movie about that anywhere. The great thing about comic books, the reason why a lot of us started reading them, is to submerge yourself in a world where anything can happen, and somebody in a colorful suit can change the world. But if you're just watching something and it's just telling you, no, the world is just cruel and awful, why know that? I could go and watch the news.
Yeah, yeah,
So I just and there's a time and place for those things. But for me, Superman is supposed to represent something big and bright and hopeful. And so, I just want to see a fun Superman movie. I just want to see something new, something different. Use some different villains. We don't have to keep doing Lex every time.
yeah. Every time, Lex Luthor.
Yeah, I would love to see a live action Brainiac at this point. I've been begging for that for like 20 years.
Man, who do you get? Who do you get? Have they cast him?
I don't know, but just like the idea, because again, the big thing with Superman in these kind of movies, because he's so powerful, and you can't just put him against a normal human villain, because there are limitations to what you can do with that.
Mhm.
But just the idea of him, like, almost kind of like Age of Ultron, of him fighting like a ton of these like robotic minions and having this big extended fight scene with Brainiac, that sounds like a lot of fun.
We've got Metamorpho in this film, but I don't see a Brainiac cast.
Yeah, I don't know if they've revealed who the main villain is yet. I know Lex is in the movie, but I'm not
Hmm.
sure if he is the main villain.
I don't know. Not a lot's being said about it. We'll find out.
But yeah, I mean, just like the way that the Squad movie was fun because it's a bunch of criminals fighting a giant kaiju. Just do something new and fresh with this property. You don't have to keep trying to recreate what Donner did in those first two movies, because we have those movies.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And kids, if you have not seen the pics and or video, it's out there. There's going to be more leaked as time goes on. We're hitting that sweet spot of filming apparently where they're filming out in the open and everyone on the planet has a phone. So everyone's getting footage and pics and both. So remember something, kids. Pics are pics. That's all they are. Calm down, relax, give this a chance, or don't, I guess. Do whatever you want. But try not to lose your mind out there, people. So that's what Phil and I are going to do. Phil, let's take this home. Give me your last word on Superman 2.
Definitely a product of its era. So your enjoyment level will probably vary depending on when you discovered this movie. But if you discovered it like I did as a kid of the 80s, you probably love it. And you probably still look back on it fondly. You still look back on Christopher Reeve, rest his peace, rest in peace, in a
Mhm.
very favorable light. You probably still think Lois's deep voice yell in this movie is very strange, but it's part of the charm of the movie. There's so many things in this movie that are kind of like, why did that happen? But it's fun. It's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie. Yeah. I can't complain about any of it. Um, there are some hokey bits, but as comic book fans, we are accustomed to hokey bits, and
Yeah.
it's fine. Comic book science, Phil, right?
Yeah, listen. We grew up on a lot of cheesy things. Every now and then, I'll go and revisit the first two seasons of Power Rangers. That stuff does not hold up sometimes as well, but it's
Mm.
fun. It's just like the Sentai stuff from Japan. It's still a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I was never a Power Rangers kid because I wasn't a kid when it hit, really. So like I wasn't really for me. I like how I don't try to hate on any fandom because even if I don't appreciate it or get it or follow it, doesn't mean I hate the fandom behind it. So I appreciate the fact that the fan base has kept it alive all this time and are dedicated to it. That's pretty cool. Well, kids, there you have it. Superman 2 in the books. Much more DC stuff to come as we cover Marvel. Lots of Marvel left to cover. More new Marvel on the way soon. More new DC stuff on the way soon. We'll try to cover as much as we can here. So let us know what you think and stay on the lookout for new episodes coming your way every week on the 6M. Episode 200 is just around the corner. Everybody get ready for that one. 200 episodes. 2020 is when we started this sucker. It's been a heck of a ride. I've loved it. And so hopefully you guys have too. Keep your eyes open, kids. We'll be back shortly. But for now, that is Superman 2.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.